What if I told you that a 20-year-old woman got into a car with a smiling couple and their baby and didn't escape for 7 years? What if I told you she spent 23 hours a day locked in a box under their bed while they slept peacefully above her? What if I told you her captor convinced her that a secret organization called The Company was watching her every move, and she believed it so completely that even when she was allowed to visit her family, she came back? This isn't a horror movie. This really happened. And the psychological control used to keep her captive will terrify you more than any physical chains ever could. Welcome to the Secret Chronicles. I'm your host, and today we're uncovering one of the most disturbing kidnapping cases in American history. The Colleen Stan case. A young woman who accepted a ride from what looked like a safe family and spent the next 7 years as a prisoner in a box so small she couldn't stand or stretch her legs. This isn't just about physical captivity. This is about how one man used psychological warfare to convince his victim that escape was impossible, that a powerful organization controlled her fate, and that compliance was her only option for survival. We're breaking this case into 5 chapters, each revealing darker truths about control, manipulation, and the human will to survive. Chapter 1, The Ride. Chapter 2, The Box. Chapter 3, Control and Fear. Chapter 4, The Escape. Chapter 5, The Aftermath. Let's begin with Chapter 1. Chapter 1, The Ride. May 19th, 1977, Northern California. A sunny spring day that should have been nothing but ordinary. Colleen Stan, 20 years old, is heading to a friend's birthday party in Westwood. She doesn't own a car, so she does what many young people did in the 1970s without thinking twice about it. She hitchhikes. Colleen grew up in a time when hitchhiking was still relatively common, especially in California's free-spirited culture. But she's not reckless. She's cautious. When the first few cars stop, something about them feels off. Wrong vibe, weird energy. She waves them on and keeps walking. Then a blue Dodge Colt pulls up. Inside is a young couple in their 20s, smiling and friendly, Cameron and Janice Hooker. In the back seat, their baby daughter sleeps peacefully in a car seat. To Colleen, this looks like the safest possible ride. A young family with an infant. What could possibly go wrong? She smiles, tosses her backpack into the car, and climbs into the back seat. The couple seems nice. They make small talk about the weather, music, where everyone's headed. Cameron drives calmly. Janice turns around occasionally to chat with Colleen, making her feel welcome and safe. For the first hour, everything seems completely normal. Just a friendly couple giving a hitchhiker a lift. Then Cameron takes a turn that's not on the route to Westwood. Colleen notices, but doesn't say anything immediately. Maybe they need to make a quick stop. Maybe they're taking a shortcut. But the turns keep coming. The road gets more remote, the trees get denser, the houses disappear. Colleen's instincts start screaming that something is wrong, but it's too late. They're miles from any help, deep in an isolated wooded area. Cameron pulls the car over and stops. The engine shuts off. The forest around them is completely silent. Before Colleen can ask what's happening, Cameron turns around with something in his hands. A wooden box, specially constructed with a locking mechanism and small air holes drilled into it. He places it over Colleen's head. Everything goes black. She can't see. She can barely breathe. She tries to scream, but Cameron's voice cuts through the darkness, cold and controlled. Don't make a sound. Don't struggle. If you cooperate, you won't get hurt. Colleen feels handcuffs snap around her wrists. Her body goes into shock. This can't be happening. Just minutes ago, she was sitting in a car with a nice family. Now she's being kidnapped. Cameron drives for what feels like hours with the box still over Colleen's head. She has no idea where they're going. She can't see anything. She can only hear the sound of the car engine and the occasional murmur of Cameron and Janice talking quietly in the front seat. Finally, the car stops. She hears a garage door opening. She's pulled from the car and led into a house. Her legs barely work. Terror has frozen her muscles. Cameron removes the headbox just long enough for Colleen to see where she is. A normal-looking suburban home in Red Bluff, California. A quiet neighborhood. Houses on both sides. Kids probably playing in nearby yards. She's so close to civilization, yet completely isolated. No one knows she's here. No one knows she's in danger. Then Cameron shows her what he's built in the basement. A wooden box, smaller than a coffin, lined with insulation to muffle sound. with a locking mechanism that can only be opened from the outside. He forces Colleen inside. The lid closes, the lock clicks, and Colleen Stan's 7-year nightmare begins. Chapter 2. The Box. The box measures approximately 3 feet long, 2 feet wide, and 2 feet high. Colleen cannot sit up straight. She cannot stretch her legs. She cannot stand. She can only lie in a fetal position or crouch in painful angles. Cameron keeps her in that box for up to 23 hours a day, sometimes longer. The only breaks come when he decides to let her out briefly to use a bucket toilet, eat minimal food, or perform tasks he demands. Inside the box, Colleen experiences sensory deprivation so severe it warps her perception of time. She doesn't know if it's day or night. She doesn't know how long she's been inside. Minutes feel like hours. Hours feel like days. The darkness is absolute. The silence is broken only by the muffled sounds of footsteps above her, voices talking, doors closing. She can hear Cameron and Janice living their normal lives just feet away, completely indifferent to her suffering. The physical conditions are brutal. The temperature inside the box fluctuates wildly. In summer, it becomes unbearably hot and humid. In winter, it's freezing. Colleen develops sores from lying in the same positions. Her muscles atrophy from lack of movement. Her body weakens from malnutrition. But the psychological torture is even worse than the physical conditions. Cameron has created an elaborate fiction to control Colleen's mind. He tells her she's now the property of a powerful secret organization called the Company. He claims this organization traffics in slaves and operates with complete impunity. He says the Company has members everywhere, watching everything, and that if she ever tries to escape or tell anyone about her situation, they will kill not just her, but her entire family. To make this lie more believable, Cameron shows Colleen fabricated documents, fake contracts, invented rules and regulations for slaves. He creates an entire mythology around the Company, making it seem massive, omniscient, and inescapable. And Colleen, isolated and terrorized, believes him completely. He forces her to sign a slave contract, stating she voluntarily submits to the Company's ownership. Of course, this contract has no legal validity whatsoever, but to Colleen, trapped and terrified, it feels binding and absolute. Cameron's psychological control is so thorough that even when he eventually starts letting Colleen out of the box for longer periods, she doesn't try to escape. She's convinced that the Company is watching, that any attempt to flee will result in her family's murder. During the brief times she's allowed out of the box, Cameron forces Colleen to serve him and Janice. She cooks meals, cleans the house, and performs whatever tasks they demand. She calls Janice ma'am and Cameron master as instructed. Janice Hooker plays a complicated role in this nightmare. She's not the primary captor, but she's complicit in every aspect of Colleen's imprisonment. She watches her husband torture another woman and does nothing to stop it. She benefits from the forced labor. She helps maintain the fiction of the Company. Later, Janice will claim she was also a victim of Cameron's psychological abuse, too afraid of him to intervene. But for 7 years, she participates in keeping Colleen captive. At night, after forcing Colleen to work all day, Cameron locks her back in the box and slides it under the bed where he and Janice sleep. They lie down, turn off the lights, and sleep peacefully while just inches beneath them, Colleen suffocates in darkness, her body cramped in impossible positions, wondering if she'll ever see daylight again. The worst part isn't the physical pain. It's the complete loss of hope. Colleen starts to believe this is her life now, forever, that she'll die in this box, forgotten by the world, just another missing person who never came home. Chapter 3. Control and Fear. As the months turn into years, Cameron Hooker's psychological control over Colleen becomes so complete that he starts taking calculated risks that would seem impossible for a kidnapper to take. He allows Colleen to work outside the home occasionally, doing yard work where neighbors can see her. She follows his instructions perfectly, never trying to signal for help, never attempting to run. He eventually permits her to jog in the neighborhood. She runs past houses where people could help her, past phones she could use to call police, past vehicles she could flag down. But she doesn't. The Company is watching, she believes. Any attempt to escape means death for her family. Cameron even allows Colleen to get a job outside the home. She works at a local lumber mill, interacting with coworkers, handling money, moving freely through public spaces. Any one of those co-workers could have been her salvation. But Colleen never asks for help. She's convinced that the company has agents everywhere, that they're monitoring her compliance. This level of psychological control is almost incomprehensible to people who haven't experienced extreme manipulation and trauma. How could someone have so many opportunities to escape and not take them? The answer lies in the systematic brainwashing Cameron employed. He didn't just threaten Colleen. He created an entire false reality where escape was not just dangerous, but impossible. He made her believe that cooperating was the only way to keep her family safe. Experts who later studied the case compared Cameron's techniques to those used in prisoner of war camps and by cult leaders. Isolation, fear, false ideology, and intermittent reinforcement all combined to break Colleen's will and remake her perception of reality. But Cameron's most audacious move comes in 1981, 4 years into Colleen's captivity. He allows her to visit her family. Colleen's parents haven't seen their daughter in years. They've filed missing person reports. They've searched for her. They feared she was dead. And suddenly, she calls them and says she's coming to visit. When Colleen arrives at her family home, her parents are shocked by her appearance. She's thin, nervous, withdrawn. She doesn't act like herself. But when they ask what happened, where she's been, Colleen gives vague answers about traveling, finding work in different places, not being able to stay in touch. She can't tell them the truth. The company is watching. If she reveals anything about her captivity, Cameron will have her family killed. She's certain of this. Her family suspects something is wrong, but they don't push too hard. They're just grateful she's alive and visiting. They don't realize she's still a prisoner, that this visit is happening only because her captor permitted it. After the visit, Colleen willingly returns to Cameron's house. She gets back in the car, drives back to Red Bluff, and goes back into the box. Because in her reality, shaped by years of psychological torture, this is the only way to keep everyone safe. That's how deep Cameron's control went. He was so confident in his brainwashing that he let his victim visit her family, knowing she would come back. And she did. Chapter 4: The Escape. By 1984, 7 years into Colleen's captivity, something unexpected happens. The psychological prison begins to crack, but not from Colleen's side. Janice Hooker breaks. For 7 years, Janice has watched her husband torture another woman. She's participated in the captivity, maintained the lies, helped enforce the rules. But the guilt and fear have been building inside her, eating away at her conscience and her sanity. Cameron's abuse isn't limited to Colleen. He's also been psychologically and physically abusive to Janice throughout their marriage. She's trapped in her own nightmare, afraid of what he might do to her if she defies him. But by 1984, Janice reaches a breaking point. Maybe it's seeing Colleen suffer for so long. Maybe it's fear that Cameron will eventually kill Colleen and Janice will be an accomplice to murder. Maybe it's simply that 7 years of living with this secret has become unbearable. Whatever the reason, Janice makes a decision that will change everything. One day when Cameron is at work, Janice goes to Colleen and tells her something that shatters the entire foundation of her captivity. The company doesn't exist. Cameron made it all up. There's no organization watching you. There never was. At first, Colleen doesn't believe her. It has to be a test. Another one of Cameron's mind games. If she shows relief or tries to escape, he'll know she was never truly compliant. But Janice insists. She explains how Cameron created the entire fiction. She describes how he manufactured the documents, invented the rules, built the mythology of the company from nothing. "You can leave," Janice tells her. "You can walk out that door right now, and nothing will happen to your family. It was all a lie." The walls of Colleen's mental prison collapse instantly. 7 years of belief, 7 years of fear, 7 years of submission, all built on a complete fabrication. The anger must have been overwhelming. The realization that she endured years of torture because of lies, that she could have escaped at any point if she'd only known the truth. But Colleen doesn't immediately run. She's cautious. She plans. She waits until she's certain Cameron won't be home, until she can leave safely without risking a confrontation. When the moment comes, Colleen packs what little she has and walks out of the house where she spent 7 years as a prisoner. She doesn't look back. She just walks away, finally free. But freedom doesn't mean safety yet. Cameron still doesn't know she's discovered the truth. He doesn't know Janice told her. He might try to find her, to bring her back, to hurt her or her family out of rage at losing his control. 2 days after leaving, Colleen does something that takes extraordinary courage. She calls Cameron on the phone. She doesn't beg. She doesn't cry. She doesn't give him the satisfaction of hearing her fear. She simply says, "I know the truth about the company. It never existed. Don't ever come near me or my family again." Then she hangs up. That phone call must have shocked Cameron to his core. For 7 years, he believed his psychological control was absolute. He thought he'd broken Colleen so completely that she would never leave, never fight back, never expose him. But in that moment, he realized he'd lost everything. Chapter 5: The Aftermath. It took months before Cameron Hooker was arrested. Colleen had to work with law enforcement to build a case. She had to relive her trauma in police interviews, provide evidence, prepare for the inevitable trial. Janice Hooker cooperated fully with prosecutors, testifying against her husband in exchange for immunity from prosecution. Her testimony was crucial to convicting Cameron, but many people struggled with the idea that she faced no criminal consequences for her 7 years of participation in Colleen's captivity. In 1985, Cameron Hooker was convicted of kidnapping, sexual assault, and multiple other charges related to Colleen's captivity. He was sentenced to 104 years in prison. At his sentencing, he showed no remorse. He insisted he'd done nothing wrong, that Colleen had been a willing participant. Even faced with overwhelming evidence of his crimes, he maintained the delusion that he was the victim of injustice. Cameron remains in prison today, and based on his sentence, he will likely die there. He's applied for parole multiple times over the years. Each time, Colleen has appeared or submitted statements opposing his release. Each time, parole has been denied. For Colleen, freedom was just the beginning of a much longer journey. The physical captivity ended in 1984, but the psychological scars took years to heal. She suffered from severe PTSD, nightmares, anxiety, and depression. Simple things that most people take for granted, like being in enclosed spaces or hearing certain sounds, would trigger panic attacks that transported her back to the box. But Colleen refused to let Cameron Hooker destroy her life permanently. She underwent extensive therapy. She reconnected with her family. She slowly rebuilt her identity beyond being a victim. Years later, she began speaking publicly about her experience, advocating for other survivors of abduction and abuse. She wanted people to understand the psychological mechanisms that keep victims trapped, the invisible chains that can be stronger than any physical restraint. In interviews, Colleen has said something that demonstrates remarkable insight and strength. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means I'm free too. She wasn't saying Cameron deserved forgiveness, or that what he did was excusable. She was saying that holding onto hatred and bitterness would keep her psychologically imprisoned even after she'd physically escaped. By choosing to move forward, to rebuild, to help others, Colleen reclaimed the power Cameron had stolen from her. The case became a landmark in understanding psychological coercion and long-term captivity. Experts studied how Cameron was able to maintain such complete control over Colleen, and the findings influenced how law enforcement and mental health professionals approach cases of kidnapping, domestic abuse, and human trafficking. The concept of Stockholm Syndrome doesn't fully explain what happened to Colleen. This wasn't about her developing affection for her captor. This was about systematic brainwashing, creating a false reality so convincing that escape seemed impossible even when the doors were literally unlocked. Colleen's story also forced society to confront uncomfortable questions about how captivity can hide in plain sight. She worked at a lumber mill. She jogged through neighborhoods. She visited her family. Multiple people had opportunities to notice something was wrong, to ask the right questions, to intervene. But they didn't, because Cameron had created such a convincing facade of normalcy, and because Colleen had been so thoroughly conditioned to hide her captivity that the truth remained invisible to everyone around them. Today, Colleen Stan lives a private life, having finally achieved the anonymity and peace she was denied for 7 years. She's no longer defined by what happened to her. She's defined by how she survived it and what she chose to do afterward. Her story remains one of the most disturbing cases of kidnapping and psychological torture in American history. But it's also one of the most powerful stories of survival, resilience, and the strength of the human spirit to overcome even the most unimaginable circumstances. So what do you think about the psychology behind this case? How could someone maintain such complete control over another person using nothing but lies and fear? Subscribe to the Secret Chronicles as we continue exposing the darkest corners of human behavior and the survivors who refuse to be destroyed by it. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a smiling couple with a baby, offering you a ride. Colleen Stan got into that car in 1977. She finally got out in 1984, but she never stopped fighting to truly escape.